In today's episode, I am sharing 3 stats that are shaping how social media works as we move into 2026. None of these are shocking. None of them are brand new stop the press moments or information, but they are worth knowing and being reminded of. Because if something keeps showing up in the data year after year, it's usually something that we should pay attention to. And not in a panicky, you're behind kind of way. That is absolutely not my vibe, but more in a knowledge is power and make better decisions when you need to kind of way. So if you want to know what the data's really saying and what it means in real life, then this episode is for you. But before we dive in, if you're new here, hi, I'm your host, Becci McAvoy. I'm a multi-award-winning social media marketer and the dreamer behind Be Heard Socials and the Boss Your Socials Club. I created this podcast to help women like you simplify your life and grow a business on your terms without the overwhelm. So if you're ready for some no BS advice, practical tips and honest chats that make social media and business feel lighter and more doable, you are in exactly the right place. Whilst you're here, can I just ask a tiny favour? If you're enjoying the show, it would mean the world if you could follow the podcast and leave a quick review. It genuinely helps more women discover the show because the more engagement it has, the more platforms recommend it to people who need this kind of support. It only takes a moment, but it makes such a big difference. Thank you so much. Now let's get started with this week's episode. Happy New Year and a big welcome to the first episode of 2026. This is also the first episode of the new season and I am so excited to kick things off with you. So let's dive straight in and talk about 3 stats that are really defining social media right now, because understanding these will give you a solid starting point for the year ahead. So the first stat I want to share is that 72.3% of online audiences use social media for brand research. That is nearly 3/4 of people, which is massive. It basically means that social media genuinely influences a huge number of people's purchase decisions, even if the conversations happening about your brand aren't ones that you're necessarily part of yet. One of the reasons I picked this stat out and started with it is because if you've been showing up on your socials, working hard on them or putting yourself out there, I really want you to take a minute, like literally right now, take a minute and congratulate yourself and pat yourself on the back. There is so much noise out there at the moment that it's not worth it anymore, that it's pay to play and all that kind of stuff. But it is worth it. And this stat shows it. In terms of the audiences who are using social media for brand research, unsurprisingly, perhaps, Instagram is leading the way with this, but it's not the only one that matters. So one of the other stats that was in the report was that 26.6% of LinkedIn users are using the platform to research brands too. So the way people are using LinkedIn is changing as well. But yeah, basically, this is why staying aware of your brand reputation on social media and viewing it as so much more than an admin task or a chore is so important. And don't get me wrong, I know it can feel like an admin task or a chore sometimes, but actually it's not. It's a really powerful marketing asset and it's information that should shape decisions across your whole business. And it's a really great thing to do. So keep going. It is worth it, even if you feel like it's not. People are using it for brand research and it is where people are coming when they want to come and find out more about businesses and that kind of thing. And also it's where people are coming when they have been recommended you via word of mouth. And I have a whole bee in my bonnet about this a little bit at the moment, but when I hear people say they don't need social media because all their work comes through word of mouth, how much they know that's true. I know most of the time when I'm recommended something, a product or a service or someone to work with, one of the first things that I do is go and check out their social media. It might be that you go and check out their website as well. And this stat is kind of showing that people are using social media to do their brand research. So before I move on to the next stat, I want to dig a little deeper into what it means in real life when we talk about brand research on social media, because this isn't someone sitting down with a notebook and analysing your content, or it's not what we traditionally view or may understand as research. It looks more like people who are scrolling your grid, watching a few of your stories and getting to know you, skimming captions, reading comments, getting a general feel for you, basically. They're asking themselves things like, do I trust this person? Do I like their approach? Do they sound like someone I'd want to work with? And a lot of that happens quietly, which is where we can think social media isn't worth it anymore or we're not getting anywhere. People are making decisions about you and your business before they follow, before they inquire and before they buy. And you'll never see most of that happening. Now, this can feel a little uncomfortable, and I get that, but it's also the reason that social media matters, because it means your content is doing work for you when you're not even online. So if you're showing up, even imperfectly, in a way that reflects your values, your boundaries, and how you actually want to work, I want you to hear this again. That effort is worth something. You are not wasting your time. You are building familiarity, trust, and clarity. And that matters, especially if you are service-based, business to business, if you're selling products, if you are wanting to position yourself as an expert, or wanting to be seen as credible and trustworthy, which I think probably covers most businesses. And like I said, this is exactly why your brand reputation on social media isn't just an admin task. It's not something to keep on top of when you've got spare time. It's insight, it's feedback. And it should be shaping decisions across your whole business, not just what you post next from post to post. It shapes what you talk about, what you stop talking about, what you say no to, how you position your offers. And like I said, it doesn't need to be, when I'm saying it's not just an admin task or a chore, it's not like I'm saying, you have to go all out and be a social media manager, but you do want to do it with intention and with strategy and approach it like that. So yeah, I just felt that was a really powerful statistic to keep in mind and remind yourself why you are doing such an excellent job and why it is worth it. Okay, so the next stat is such an important one if you've ever felt the pressure to be everywhere. According to the Digital 2026 report, internet users aged 16 and over actively use an average of 6.75 social platforms each month. So basically, that's about 7. So people aren't on one platform, they are on loads. And the reason I'm mentioning this is because a lot of noisy clickbait content would have you believe that platforms like TikTok or Snapchat are really only for younger audiences, and or that those younger audiences aren't on the older platforms at all, especially when you compare them to something like Facebook, which has been around forever. That kind of clickbait also pushes the idea that when a new platform comes along, everyone automatically abandons the older ones. But according to the Digital 2026 report, it couldn't be further from the truth, which, like I said, has shown that internet users aged 16 and over actively use an average of 6.75, or let's go with 7, social platforms every single month, which basically means that social media platforms overlap significantly. So when you have someone on one platform particularly, generally because they sell training on it, and this is another bee in my bonnet, saying Instagram isn't worth it anymore because they're selling LinkedIn training, or LinkedIn isn't worth it more because they're selling Instagram training, and you will never hear me do that. It's just not true. And there is obviously some nuance into focusing on one platform and finding like the place that your audience predominantly are. But those platforms are overlapping significantly. So, for example, 80.7% of Snapchat users are also on Facebook. 81.8% of TikTok users are on Facebook too. But interestingly, only 34.8% of TikTok users are on Snapchat. And I say interestingly because that shows that even audiences that feel very similar, like TikTok and Snapchat, which have the more Gen Z vibe, the younger audience vibe that we tend to associate with them, don't actually overlap as much as we might assume. And this is exactly why it's so important to really understand where your audience is hanging out and why they're hanging out there. Because when you know that, your strategy can become clearer, more intentional, and so much more effective. So yeah, like I said, it's interesting in lots of different ways, this as a statistic. But it's also a really good reminder not to take clickbait headlines at face value, because they're rarely telling the whole truth. And often they are just trying to sell you something. So from me to you in 2026, please stop freaking out that Facebook is dead, Instagram is dying, or impossible to get reach on. You have to be on the newest platform or you'll be left behind, because the data tells a much calmer story. People aren't abandoning platforms, they're layering them, and user bases overlap a lot. Someone might use TikTok to be entertained, Instagram to get inspired, LinkedIn to check credibility, that kind of thing. It's same person, different mindset. And when you can adapt your content to suit that mindset, and when you really understand your audience, your strategy becomes clearer, quieter, less overwhelming, and honestly, much more sustainable. My third and final stat that I selected to share with you is that 96% of online audiences access the internet via their mobile phone, and only 59.6% use laptops or desktops. And I imagine the stats for how they access social media, not just the internet more widely, would be even higher for a mobile and lower for a desktop. Now, this isn't new news. The stats have been really high for a long time around this, and I've spoken a lot about it before, and optimizing for mobile, I've spoken a lot about before. But I do think it's one of those things that's always worth reminding ourselves of for many different reasons, whether it's down to how you're designing your content or even how your audience consumes your content. Even if you're creating your content on your laptop, which I actually really recommend because I think it's a much better place to create, the person on the other end is probably seeing that content squeezed into the palm of their hand. They might be in bed scrolling on their commute, doing the school run, queuing for a latte, watching the kettle boil, or even maybe they are on the toilet, because let's not pretend that we don't all scroll whilst we go to the toilet sometimes. But either way, they are on their phone, which is why mobile first thinking is essential. Your content needs to be clear, it needs to be easy to read and instantly engaging. One of the tips I always recommend is this: when you are creating in Canva, zoom right out. I go to about 30% and check that you can still read it. That's roughly the size people will be seeing it on their phones. Or you could open Canva on your phone and look at it there and see that you can read it and that it's really clear what you are trying to get across. Either way, when it comes to designing your content, you want to make sure it's clear and readable on mobile. But we also need to think about context. So where someone is, what they're doing, and how they're feeling when they see your post. Most people, and when you think about the way that you consume social media, I'm sure you can relate to this, are scrolling while they're waiting for their kids to come out of school, or like I said earlier, waiting for the kettle to boil, or they're doing 10 things at once. They're easily distracted, basically. But it also means thinking about how someone feels when they see your content. So when you think about where they are and what they're doing, think about how they're feeling during that moment. So I've just mentioned about being easily distracted, but also, are they tired? Are they overwhelmed? Are they looking for reassurance? Or are they on the playground, on the school run, trying to avoid eye contact with anyone else so that somebody doesn't talk to them? All these things are worth thinking about, because if your content requires too much effort, too much thinking, or too much energy, they will scroll past. Not because it's bad content, but because attention is limited. Even if they are relatively focused on social media, it's still a limited attention span. Simplicity isn't lazy, is what I want to say here. It's considerate. So we need to hook them in quickly and make it easy for them to engage. I have previous episodes all about how to create a good hook and write better captions. So I will link to those in the show notes rather than go into the how to do that right now, because those episodes go into a lot of detail. But this is important to keep in mind, because if you feel like people aren't seeing your content, it might not be that they haven't seen it at all. They might have seen it. They just didn't engage with it because of how and where they were consuming it. And I get people say this to me quite a lot, members or people that I do power hours with. They'll be almost frustrated, and I get it, that someone will have given them a compliment on their content or say, "Oh, I saw your post on that. Oh, it was really good." And they'll say, "Why didn't they engage with it? Why can't they give me the engagement?" And actually, a lot of that comes down to people not thinking about it, or, like I've just said, the way that they are consuming it. So yeah, it's a stat that is always worth remembering, partly for design and thinking about how your content looks and how your captions are written and all of that kind of stuff, but also by giving it context of where people are and what they're doing when they're consuming your content and what that might mean for how they engage with your content. And it's also a stat that should shape how we think about and how we create our content. So I want to put those three stats together, I guess, to kind of end by giving you the bigger picture. Basically, social media shapes buying decisions. It influences how people perceive your brand. It's spread across multiple platforms and is almost always consumed on a phone. And that is not something to fear. It's something to work with. You don't need to do more. You just need to do things more intentionally. You need to understand your audiences and choose platforms on purpose. Create content that respects people's time, attention, and energy. And most importantly, build a social media presence that supports the life and the business that you actually want, because social media should always be working for you, not draining you. That is the energy that I have lived with in 2025, but I am absolutely taken into 2026 too. And it's the energy that I hope you take into 2026 as well. So that is it for this episode. I hope it gave you a bit of reassurance, or I hope it helped something click into place. And if it has, then my job here is done. In the meantime, I will be back in your ears next week. Thank you so much for tuning in. I am truly grateful for your time and energy today. I know you've got a million things on your plate, and the fact that you are here investing your time into something that will help yourself, your business, and your socials grow is something I am really proud of you for. Before you go, though, if you love this podcast and you're a woman running a small business who wants to make social media easier and business life less lonely, I've got something for you. The Boss Your Socials Club is here to bring you inspiration, accountability, confidence, and community. It's a place where we ban the word should because we believe in bespoke advice that will work for you, your stage of life, and your business. As a member, you'll get a clear content plan every month, ready-to-use templates, and the accountability to actually show up. Plus, you'll have expert support and a community of incredible women who get it and who want to cheer you on and support you in your business journey. Think of it like having a teeny tiny social media marketing expert in your pocket, giving you the knowledge and the assurance when it comes to posting great, engaging content on your social media platforms and showing up in a way that grows your business without the overwhelm. Whether you're just getting started or looking to take your social media to the next level, Boss Your Socials Club has everything you need. You can join from just £14 a month or save with an annual membership. The link is in the show notes. Thank you again for being here today, and I can't wait to catch you in the next episode. Until then, take care and keep showing up.